What is up? Darkside Phil here, and welcome to another edition of the Hateful Truth video game review series, where you can get maximum truth and minimum bullshit. And I think today, case in point, is going to be a perfect opportunity to show that with the review that I'm about to do. This is a game that a lot of people have waited to see my review of this game in particular for a couple of reasons, okay? And keep in mind, I know I've said this before, but I do not work for anyone in particular. I am independently contracted by Machinima as a partner. Therefore, I am able to say whatever the hell I want about whatever game I play. And so I'm able to give honest and fair reviews. And when I give my reviews, I score them accordingly with all the other recent games that I've played and comparing their levels of quality, content, etc. Today we're going to talk about a game that, first of all, it's a third installment in a well-liked series, and unfortunately, I'd say for the creators of the game, you know, they chose to take this game in a different direction than the previous two installments, and a lot of the hardcore players who would really like those previous two installments kind of gave it a negative backlash. It doesn't necessarily mean the game's a bad game, it just means that they're trying to take it in a different direction, and some people didn't like that. At the same time, this game, and I hate to say it, this happened a couple times, definitely happened last year, and I called them out on it as well. This game suffered from what I think it's kind of like almost a mob mentality of negativity, okay? Which basically means one person gets an advanced copy of the game, plays through the game, for whatever reason has a bug up their ass, reviews it really poorly, gives it a shit score, and now so every other reviewer now feels like it's their job to keep their review in line with this negative review, or else they look bad. And in this case in point, it was IGN who rated Ninja Gaiden 3 a 3 out of 10 before anyone else even got their hands on the game to review it. And so everyone else was like, oh shit. And now you see as scores come out, they're all really low, at least for a lot of the scores that have been coming out for this game. But then when you actually read the reviews, it doesn't seem to make sense if you've either played the game or watched a playthrough. So what I'm going to do here today, I'm going to attempt to clear the air on what I think really happened with Ninja Gaiden 3. I am going to talk a little bit about the IGN review, even though I've gone into it already in detail in 2 other videos, but a lot of people don't watch those videos. So I'm going to talk a little bit about it, but I'm not going to harp too much about it, because ultimately it's about me giving my thoughts about the game and hopefully helping you to understand if the game is good or not, okay? So Ninja Gaiden 3 is the third installment of the Ninja Gaiden reboot for modern consoles, starting on the original Xbox, now for the Xbox 360, PlayStation 3 era, and traditionally, even back from the Nintendo Entertainment System, these games were known to be difficult. Like, these were supposed to be gruelingly hard games. You have to use a lot of trial and error to replay certain areas of the game to figure out, how do I beat this certain mob of enemies? It seems really cheap and unfair, but if you keep replaying it, you'll eventually figure out how to get past it, okay? Well, also, the game kind of, even back in the day, touted itself on, alright, you have a variety of weapons to use, you have a variety of magic you can use, there's a lot of different abilities and things that you can use during the course of the game. And even when the series got rebooted, that seemed to be the case, where you could have several weapons you would collect over the course of the game, and so there would be character progression, you would find power-ups, you would find potions that you would have to use to heal, but also you could go to a shop and buy items that would maybe permanently increase your health bar and do that kind of stuff. In Ninja Gaiden 3, Tecmo and Team Ninja decided to take the game in a different direction. I think what they said was, we understand that there's a fan base that likes that style, but it is a little bit too hardcore for the mainstream to jump onto, okay? So what they did in Ninja Gaiden 3, they opted for a more streamlined interface and more streamlined gameplay, meaning there's no more health power-ups whatsoever. There's no more shop to even buy stuff at. For most of the game, or I'd say for 90% of the game, you're just using a ninja sword. Now, there are different ninja swords that you get over the course of the game, but it's not like you're mixing it up and just going to a nunchaku and then going to, you know, a scythe or anything like that. You're always using a ninja sword for most of the game. And so a lot of people said, wow, a lot of those elements that we came to know of the reboot series of Ninja Gaiden 3 were taken away. In addition, as we're going to talk about, there's a very limited amount of special attacks or power-ups in the game that really have any effect. In the previous games, there was a lot of this kind of stuff, and a lot of people said, well, maybe it was too confusing, maybe there was too much stuff to choose from. It was hard to tell what was good in what situation, and so maybe they tried to purposely simplify it this time, and that could always be a double-edged sword, and we're going to talk about that. Alright, so Ninja Gaiden 3. First of all, the story. The story is interesting, but as most Japanese culture, most games that focus on Japanese culture, like the Ninja Gaiden series do, has a pretty wild and wacky story, okay? Basically, Ryu Hayabusa, who is the ninja, the main ninja in this game, is tricked into doing certain things because basically there is this shadow organization that has employed someone to trick Ryu into going to certain areas and doing certain things so that they can get Ryu's blood. They then use his blood to try and reawaken a god character to take over the world. I know it sounds ridiculously crazy. There are plot twists inside, there are double crosses and things that go on during the course of the game, so I'm not going to go into specifics, but basically it's a pretty interesting plot. If you're paying attention, it makes sense. And one of the primary things about this game is that right at the beginning of the game, as you can see, Ryu gets a curse, a Slavic curse placed on him. I think it's called the Grip of the Dead or something like that, or Grip of the Damned. And primarily, it doesn't really affect the gameplay, but what it does do later on in the game, gives him a power-up ability where when his arm starts glowing, he can go into instant kill mode and get up to 5 instant kills on the enemies he's fighting. Outside of that, the graphics are great. I want to say that. Frame rate is amazing. From what I've heard, this is part of the course for Ninja Gaiden games. The frame rate is 60 frames per second throughout most of the game. Smooth, beautiful running. Unlike most games today that are still only 30 frames per second, this game is a visual treat. And that is kind of one of the things that directly I do oppose. In some of the reviews I've been seeing, people are saying, the graphics are washed out and boring. What? What fucking game were you playing? No, you're an asshole, because the graphics in Ninja Gaiden 3 are really good. If you actually pay close attention to the character models, to everything going on, the locales, there's a lot of detail, there's a lot of interesting stuff going on, and I just think it's people nitpicking for the sake of nitpicking to try to make the reviews lower because they want to match that original 3 out of 10 review, okay? Voice acting's cheesy, but what do you expect? It's a Japanese-style game. Voice acting's always cheesy. I kind of am starting to enjoy the B-movie level voice acting of this style of game, but the soundtrack is excellent. The soundtrack picks a lot of hard rock and techno beats and mixes it in with the action of the combat, and it really matches the combat perfectly, so the music choice was a very good match for this game. But primarily, what do people want to talk about when you talk about Ninja Gaiden 3? You want to talk about the gameplay. And so we're going to talk about the single-player campaign, and yes, we're actually going to talk about competitive multiplayer, which you might be saying, what the fuck? Ninja Gaiden has competitive multiplayer? And the answer is actually, yeah, they put competitive multiplayer in the game. So, let's talk about the campaign first. The campaign's about a little bit over 5 hours long. I'm trying to remember in my head exactly how long my playthrough was. I think it was about 40 parts, which would have been about, if you want to say, about 5 hours, 5 to 6 hours. So I think it was under 5 hours, to be honest. But it's extremely fast-paced. I mean, the combat in this game is nuts. And here's how the combat works. For those of you who haven't played Ninja Gaiden, it might make sense. For those of you who have played Ninja Gaiden, it's probably like, what? They changed it like that? So here's how it works. Right from the get-go of the game, you have almost your entire moveset unlocked. What I mean is, you have set combos that you can do by pressing 2 buttons, the X and the Y button, or, you know, on the case of the PlayStation, it's probably the square or the triangle button, which is light attack and heavy attack. And so you can do combos like light, 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 heavy. Oh, it launches the guy in the air, and you'll follow up light, 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 heavy. So there's those basic kind of combos you can do. And there's some variation, leading to some pretty impressive stuff, some instant kills. The classic Izuna drop is in the game. So all of this stuff is in the game. The problem is, for whatever reason, I don't know if this was some creative direction or whatever, Ninja Gaiden 3 never explains this to you. So at the beginning of the game, you don't know what you can do, and you just start mashing buttons. And you don't know what combos you have, you don't know what you're able to do. Now, the bad thing about this is, here's the instruction booklet, okay? That the instruction booklet should have explained, gee, if you press, you know, this certain button, a menu will open up showing you all of your techniques that are available. And over the course of the game, you'll unlock new techniques depending on which sword you have, because like I said, there are several swords that you obtain through the course of the game, and so you can actually get better combos and better abilities later on in the game. Not only does the instruction booklet never explain this, the only mention at all is the back button, or I guess on the PlayStation again, it would be like the select button. It says techniques. Does it explain what techniques means? Absolutely not. And the rest of the instruction booklet is all about the online play. So there's nowhere in this instruction booklet, nor in the game, where it explains to you that by opening up this menu, you can see your listing of abilities, and that actually over the course of the game, there is character development where you get better combos, better abilities based on what swords you have. You would never fucking know this unless you randomly press the button by accident or someone just tells you. And thank God for me, I have fans who watch my playthroughs, they told me, and so I did it. And I was fucking frustrated because I was already in chapter 6 of 10 by the time that I had found out about, I'm sorry, it was chapter 6 of I think it was 8 or 9 chapters that are in the game. And, hold on one second, I feel a sneeze coming, that's why I stopped. Now it's going away, shit. Okay, whew. I got it out, I felt that one coming. I was already in like chapter 5 or 6 of the game before I realized there were all these new abilities that I could have been using for the course of the game once I had unlocked them, and I was really disappointed the game never fucking explained this to me. Like, what kind of a game in this day and age doesn't tell you how to play it even in the instruction booklet? That's fucking frustrating, okay? In addition to that, sorry, I just gotta dry my nose because I sneezed. In addition to that, there really is not a lot of variety. Really, it's just about, okay, you're fighting a whole bunch of enemies, and they're all going to come at you at once. So what do? There's a dodge button, which lets you dodge across the screen. So you use that to dodge away. You can sometimes use the B button to throw ninja stars, which is like a basic projectile attack. But here's a spoiler. About 75% of the enemies in the game either aren't affected by the stars, or they just deflect them, so it doesn't matter. They're almost completely worthless in the game. Later on in the game, you actually get a bow and arrow, which you can draw to use ranged attacks, and you can use it to attack some of the projectile throwing enemies. So there will be enemies up on balconies shooting rockets at you while you're fighting the ground forces, so you want to pull out your bow and shoot them before they can hit you. And there'll also be some flying enemies and such, which you need to use the bow and arrow. But for the most part, most of the combat of this game is XXXY, XXXX, XXY, XXX, XXY, and you're just basically going like this and wailing on enemies and then dodging their attacks in between and then wailing on enemies again until you build up either a meter or you get an execution kill. And the way it works is once you hit an enemy a certain amount of times, you can execute them, which they call a steel to bone attack. What it is Ryu takes his sword, stabs the guy, wrenches it around a little bit, and in a real gory fashion, rips the sword out of him, and there's blood squirting everywhere, and the guy dies. There's also 2 different separate meters you can build up. There's the Ninpo meter, and this one, even being someone who didn't play the previous 2 Ninja Gaiden games, I was still blown away by this change, okay? In all previous Ninja Gaiden games, including the ones on NES, you could get special magical abilities, and there were several different ones which you could use or pick between, depending on icons and power-ups and things that you found in the game. Even from what I'm to understand, even in the last 2 installments, the modern reboots of Ninja Gaiden, there were multiple magics and things you can use. In this game, there's only one magical spell you can use. It's the Fire Dragon. And basically what happens is you fight enough until your meter fills. You press 2 buttons together, which activates the spell. This giant dragon comes out, eats everyone, goes away, so basically clears the screen of enemies, and that's it. And you never get another ability. So it's like, wow, I can understand if people had played the previous Ninja Gaiden games that you'd be let down that in this game there's only one magical spell, when in every Ninja Gaiden up to now, there have always been a plethora of spells that you could choose from, and it makes no fucking sense that they made that choice, okay? The only other ability, as I already told you, is with this curse, every once in a while your arm will start glowing. If you hold down a certain button, you'll be able to get up to 5 instant kills on enemies, okay? Now, most of the gameplay is going to be this combat, repetitive combat, and there is a lot of platforming, there is a lot of that kind of action-style gameplay. They try to make the gameplay keep moving quickly enough so that you're always either fighting, executing, running, jumping, dodging, swinging, doing something that's action-packed. And really the game, in my opinion, does a really cool job of keeping the things fast-paced. There are some really neat large-scale boss battles in this game that I really enjoyed some of the boss battles, and I thought that they were really cool. Some of them are really repetitive, but it is just kind of really fun. I don't want to spoil anything for anyone, but there are some really cool things that you do in this game, some bosses that you stand up against. And you're like, wow, I can't believe I'm doing this in a video game. You know, I never thought I'd be doing something cool like this. I'm on the fence because I kind of want to tell you, alright, you fight dinosaurs as a ninja. Who as a kid didn't want to fucking be a ninja fighting dinosaurs with a katana? Let's face it, it's fucking cool. But anyway, that happens in the game. So anyway, there's some really cool stuff in the game like that. So for me, I really enjoyed the fast pace of the game, and I enjoyed the fact that the combat was free-flowing once you figured out that there were other abilities. The fact that the game never explains to you these abilities is really frustrating, but once I learned this, all of a sudden I was doing flying backdrop Azuna drops, aerial executions, and all kinds of stuff that I thought was really neat, and I wish I had known that I could have done that from the get-go of the game. So there really is character development, but the game never explains it to you. You have to figure out about it by yourself, okay? So that's the campaign. The campaign, like I said, is roughly 4 to 5 hours long. Then you've got online play, and there's two different kinds of online play. You've got Ninja Trials, which are basically just training stages where they send waves of enemies at you, and it's your goal to complete certain actions. So it might be, hit this guy with a ninja star and then kill him. Okay, cool. You did it. You got that contract complete. Keep fighting until you do a steel to bone attack, which is an execution attack. Cool, you got that contract complete. And then if you survive this trial, you get experience points, and the experience points add up, okay, and they allow you to level your generic ninja. So he's going to get better abilities, more abilities, better armor and stuff he can wear, different colors, different kanji that he can wear on the back. So it's like a leveling system, similar to a lot of the other systems that you've seen, like in Mass Effect 3, hell, in Call of Duty, and all these games, it's the same kind of deal now. You go online, you play, you earn experience, and you can level up your character appropriately. So you can either do those training stages by yourself or online with another person cooperatively. And then in addition to that, there is a competitive mode where it's two teams of 4 ninjas, each facing off in a deathmatch style gameplay, where it's really weird because you play it like Ninja Gaiden 3. You're running, you're jumping, you're climbing walls, you're doing combos that may lead to an execution, but then there's the Ninpo Attacks, which after you hit a guy a certain amount of times, you'll have a bar that charges up. Once you do a Ninpo Attack, you charge a fucking Hadouken like in Street Fighter, and if anyone touches you during this, they get hurt. And then you throw the Hadouken, and you can actually aim where it goes. It's a giant explosion, and it's really powerful, and it can kill anyone with one hit. So the action is just fast, furious, and insane. You'll see 3 dudes jumping into each other, slashing wildly. All of a sudden, someone gets executed, and someone else gets executed from behind. Someone charges up a Hadouken, throws it, kills 2 dudes. Another dude gets his arm charges up with the curse, and he starts teleporting around, insta-killing everyone. And then you try to launch a guy, and someone flying is going to drop to the ground. And you're like, what the fuck am I playing? Like, it's insanity when you play this fucking competitive mode. And I don't know whether to say, wow, that was fucking nuts, that was really fun, or wow, that was fucking nuts, what the fuck did I just play, and do I even want to play it again? It's really weird. It's just an odd feeling when you play this multiplayer of the game. I can tell you this, I played it for about an hour, and by the end of the hour, I leveled up my character enough that I had several abilities, and I was able to kind of hang with the people who were playing online, but even then, it still seemed really chaotic, and just like, this is the kind of gameplay that if you want to just fuck around for a couple hours and have a little bit of crazy fun, you'll play it. But there's really no reason to go back to it. It's not like it's something that's competitive or serious and that you're really going to get into. You know what I mean? So, for me, it's kind of like, it's nice that this is here, and it's nice that they've put it in the game. And it does add to the overall package of the game, but it's not exactly great. You know what I mean? It's like, it's there, it's fun to play once, but it's not something that I would probably want to go back to. The best comparison that I can give of Ninja Gaiden 3 is another recent game that came out that for whatever reason a lot of critics seem to give really high scores, and I didn't understand it in my review. And that game was Asura's Wrath, okay? Asura's Wrath is very similar to Ninja Gaiden 3. There's a lot of repetitive combat where it's just button mashing. You fight until you charge up a meter, you unleash that meter to past that certain stage of the level, and then you progress on. There was a lot of quick time events. Yes, Ninja Gaiden 3 and Asura's Wrath both have a lot of quick time events, and it is a big chunk of the gameplay. And they both had these really crazy, you know, Japanese culture-esque stories that really, for Western audiences, might be a little confusing, but it's still kind of funny and quirky and fun at the same time. My main comparison between the two games is this. Asura's Wrath plays like a movie. Ninja Gaiden 3 plays like an action game. Meaning, there's enough combat in the game, there's enough variety in the enemies, there's enough really epic big boss battles that aren't just fucking quick time events that you feel like this is a game. Asura's Wrath didn't feel like a game. It felt like a fucking anime series that they put a couple button pushes in to sell it as a $60 release. Hands down, I would play Ninja Gaiden 3 over Asura's Wrath. I'll tell you that right now. And I really feel the only reason that the mainstream media is panning this game is because, number one, it is different from the previous two installments, and number two, because they're being nostalgic about the previous two installments. I can understand if you really like Ninja Gaiden 1 or 2, and you thought those games were 8s or 9s, well, this game, they went mainstream, and there's no more power-ups, and there's only one magical spell, and you can only use one style of weapon. You can't use nunchucks and other stuff like in other previous installments. So, oh, I'm frustrated about that. It's a 3. It's like, no, you can't do that. You can't be a baby about your review and whine and pout and stamp your feet because change came to your favorite game and say it's a piece of shit. Because the bottom line is this. Ninja Gaiden 3 is not a bad game. It's fun. It's action-packed. It's free-flowing. I really felt the whole time I played it that I was just in the middle of a crazy action-adventure sequence, and it was so completely fun and interactive. There were a couple repetitive parts fighting the same enemies over and over. Some of the waves of enemies are a little bit on the longish side, but again, once you realize that you have these fun combos you can use on these guys, which I didn't realize till very far into the game, it's actually a lot more fun. So I really feel that if I had known that stuff earlier in the game, I would have enjoyed the game a lot better than I did, okay? So, that being said, I have to realize that I'm reviewing this game up against all of the other games that are out right now. So against any other game that I've played recently, is this more of a bang for my buck? Did I have more fun? Now there are a lot of games recently that I played that were a lot longer than this. Doesn't necessarily mean that I like them a hell of a lot better than this one, but I do have to take into account only a 4 to 5 hour long campaign plus online play that I probably won't go back to. At the same time, though, I had a hell of a lot of fun during the time that I was playing the campaign of this game. And I have to take that into account. So, with all things considered, okay, I'm going to give Ninja Gaiden 3 a rating of 6.5 out of 10. And the reason being, I really feel if the game was longer, I would have gotten a much better score. There's no reason why this game couldn't have been 8 hours long. Let's face it. It's a cop-out in this day and age that they're making these games so short. It could have been 8 hours long, and it wouldn't have seemed repetitive as long as you kept doing different locales, different bosses, okay? In addition to that, I do see where people are coming from saying that the game's kind of watered down. I'll be honest, it is pretty easy to, for most of the game, you can mash these buttons and pretty much kill everything on the screen. It's not going to be fun because you're not really in control of the motion of combat that's going on. You don't understand the combos that you're using, but you will get the job done. It's a lot more rewarding to press the back button, look at your techniques list, master, say, 3 or 4 really interesting looking combos, and use those for the course of the game, and then use the better ones that you unlock further on in the game when you get the better swords. That's really where the game is at. Unfortunately, again, I have to fault the game for never explaining to you how to fucking do that, and that even happens in the game. I mean, let's be honest, the guy who reviewed this game a 3 out of 10 said there was no character development, when in fact there's a lot of character development. The person of Ryu Hayabusa as a character in the story of the game, and also his abilities during the course of the game. He gets a better bow, and he gets better combos every time he gets a better sword. But if you didn't know that, because you didn't press the back button by accident to see the techniques listing there, you would never know. And I guarantee you that reviewer who gave this game the lowest score, 3 out of 10, didn't even fucking know that. So that's what really pisses me off about these advanced reviews, is that people get advanced copies of the games, don't share them with anyone, okay? He's not talking to anyone about the game when he's reviewing it, never knew that there was a moves list and that he actually gets better abilities as the game progresses, and ends up saying the game has no character development when actually there's a lot of character development. He's misinformed, but because the game didn't outright explain it, he never knew about it, okay? So I do have to fault the game for that. And so, what I would say is this. When you're playing Ninja Gaiden 3, if you've played 1 and 2, understand it's not what it used to be. They're trying to bring this game to a more mainstream audience. They absolutely dumped it down. But that doesn't mean it's a bad game. The graphics are still great, the story's still interesting, the combat is still fun and complex, as long as you know to check your moves list at different points of the game, and it is a fun, fast-paced, moving game. My major complaint is the length is just not on par with a game that you're paying $60 for, so I give it a 6.5 out of 10. Okay, so that's it for the Hateful Truth video game review for Ninja Gaiden 3. I hope you found it informative. I hope that this will help you to figure out whether or not you want to try the game. And maximum truth, minimum bullshit, man. I cut right through that stupid bullshit of those dumbass reviewers who don't know what they're doing, and I gave it to you, you know, frankly and honestly and truthfully. So, thanks a lot, and I will see you next time for the Hateful Truth.